Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. The Oklahoma Sooners come in at number 21 in our way too early top 25. And you know, some people might say that 21st is a little low for the Sooners. A little low for a team that started off 9-0 last year, finished the year at 11-2. But the Sooners have a handful of questions going into 2022. They're dealing with a brand new coach in Brent Venables. And we're here today, guys, to break down their schedule for this 2022 season, why we have them ranked at 21st, and what the upcoming season could have in store for Brent Venables' first year in Norman. But before we do all of that, again, guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert as we continue our schedule previews for all of our top 25 teams. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Again, guys, those things just take you a few seconds to do. They help us out tremendously. They help grow our channel. They help with the YouTube algorithm. So please continue to like, comment, subscribe. Check out everything down in the description below because, again, it helps us provide you with nonstop college football content. And we are just inching closer and closer and closer, guys, to the start of June, which, of course, will be when prediction season rolls around. That really kicks off the new season for us. So please continue to do that, help our channel grow, and become a part of our Gridiron Expert team today. So we take a look at Oklahoma. Again, 21st. We've had a lot of people ask us, why so low? Why 21st? Again, this is a team that went 11-2 last year, won the Alamo Bowl over Oregon. But when you look at Oklahoma, guys, and we're not factoring necessarily last year's results into the rankings, because 11-2 is pretty dang good. But we know that last year's Oklahoma team very well could have been a disaster. 6 of the 9 wins for Oklahoma, 6 of their first 9 wins, I should say, came by one possession. Tulane, Nebraska, West Virginia, Kansas State, Texas, Iowa State, all of them being decided by one possession. Easily could have been losses to Tulane. Easily could have been a loss to Texas. The Sooners were down 28-7 in that game. So this was all year long. You know, when we talked about rankings and we talked about playoff, we said Oklahoma, yeah, they're 9-0. They're doing the job. They're getting the wins done, but they're not winning impressively. And so that's going to be something to watch out for in Brent Venables' first year. Is the talent certainly is there for Oklahoma. Can they start to win impressively? Can they start to win the way they should? Can they take care of easy business against Tulane and West Virginia and guys that they probably should have dominated last year? Brent Venables, of course, comes in because Lincoln Riley jumped ship, shocked the college football world by going to USC, and he took a lot of players with him. Took a lot of players away from Oklahoma. Big one, of course, was Caleb Williams, their quarterback, who will now be the quarterback at USC. But Brent Venables comes in. He had a handful of starters sticking around in Norman. He also utilized the transfer portal well, bringing in Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, coming in from UCF. So that's huge. Quarterback, many say, is the most important position on the field. And getting a guy that's proven, has a heck of an arm, very accurate, takes care of the ball well, he's going to do very well in Norman. I think he's going to do well in this system under Brent Venables. So the cupboard's not bare. Oklahoma is not rebuilding from the ground up. But of course, when you lose your head coach, when you lose so much talent because of your head coach taking them with them, you do look at Oklahoma and you say, hey, this could be a tough stretch, especially with the schedule they have, especially in a Big 12 that is constantly improving and has really shown some strengths from other teams not named Oklahoma over these last few years. So we take a look at their schedule, guys. Can the Sooners get back to the Big 12 championship game? They missed out last year. It's Oklahoma State and Baylor that got to that championship game last year. So can the Sooners get there in Brent Venables' first year? Will they be a playoff contender in his first year? Well, when you look at the schedule, that first little bit, to me, is relatively favorable. It's a good way to kind of ease in to the season for Brent Venables, into his first year with the Sooners. They shouldn't have much of a problem with UTEP, shouldn't have much of a problem with Kent State. Both of those teams, bowl teams last year, so certainly cannot afford to overlook them. But Oklahoma should be better than them and should take care of business. Although we thought the same thing against Tulane. They did win that game much closer than we thought it would be. The first real test for Brent Venables' Oklahoma is going to be at Nebraska in Week 3. The Sooners beat Nebraska last year 23-16 in Norman, a game that was much closer than many thought it would be. Nebraska, many considering the best 3-9 team in history because the Cornhuskers were very, very close to winning a lot of their games. I believe almost all, maybe all of their 9 losses were by one possession. It was a very, very rough year for Nebraska because it very well could have been so special if they'd known how to finish the games. So Oklahoma survived that one 23-16. Now they have to go to Lincoln. New offensive coordinator in Nebraska for Mark Whipple. You've got a new quarterback there, Casey Thompson, transferring in from Texas. Nebraska is going to be no slouch, and we know how passionate those Cornhusker fans can be. So first true test there. Kansas State, they struggled against Kansas State under Lincoln Riley. Kansas State beat Oklahoma a couple years in a row. Last year, Sooners only beat the Wildcats 37-31, but they do have the benefit of hosting Kansas State. So their first Big 12 game under Brent Venables will be at home. At TCU, the Sooners won that game 52-31 last year. TCU dealing with a new head coach in Sonny Dykes. They, to me, have more questions right now with their head coach than Oklahoma does with Brent Venables. Texas, of course, that's the big one. You know, we're going to get to our key stretch here in a second, guys. I'm kind of not breaking down every game here, but you can make the argument that the key stretch is from Nebraska to Texas. So Nebraska, Kansas State, TCU, and Texas, because those are going to be the first true 4 big tests for Brent Venables. And you can say that's going to make or break the season. And in a way, you're right. But I do feel like the toughest game, and out of all of these, is going to be Texas. The game in Dallas, the Red River Showdown, the Red River Rivalry, a game that Oklahoma won last year 55-48 after trailing 28-7. That was the emergence of Caleb Williams. That was his breakout game under Lincoln Riley. And of course, again, the two now paired at USC. So that Texas game is huge. You know, that is huge for both teams. Both teams really hold a lot of weight in the Red River Showdown, especially by the end of the season. Yeah, maybe it wasn't what we wanted, but we beat Oklahoma or we beat Texas. That's a huge, huge deal. And that's going to be huge for Brent Venables going up against Steve Sarkisian, who's going to need a big year down in Austin as well. Texas game is big. They followed up with Kansas, who they struggled with against last year, but beat 35-23. So that's their first half of the schedule. Got 7 games right there. But to me, with the exception of the Texas game, maybe the Nebraska game too, it's pretty favorable. It's not bad. And Oklahoma should come out on top, in theory, on the majority of those games. It's after the bye week that things get tough. The key stretch in Oklahoma's season for me is Iowa State to Oklahoma State. So at Iowa State, Baylor, at West Virginia, and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma lost 2 games last year. They were to Baylor and Oklahoma State. So in a 4-game stretch, the Sooners will be playing the 2 teams that they lost to last year. Fortunately for them, they get both of them at home. They get to host the Bears, the reigning Big 12 champions, and they get to host Oklahoma State, Bedlam, a team they lost to 37-33 last year, an instant classic, not just for Bedlam, but in the entire college football season. At Iowa State, again, that's a team that has really given Oklahoma a run for their money the last 5-6 years under Matt Campbell. A lot of those games have been decided by 1 possession. Last year, no exception. Oklahoma surviving the Cyclones 28-21. And with the game being in Ames on a Thursday night, certainly a big trap game for the Sooners, even though they're coming off a bye week. Baylor lost to them by 13 last year. The Bears under Dave Aranda absolutely will be in contention, not just for a repeat for the Big 12 championship and Big 12 title, but they are again a dark horse college football playoff contender. There's no doubt in my mind. The talent is there for Baylor to get back to that point. Not an easy task for Oklahoma. At West Virginia, the Sooners only beat West Virginia 16-13 last year. They needed that game-winning field goal at the end of the game just to survive the Mountaineers. And that was one of those earlier games in the year, September, early October, where people were like, hey, yeah, Oklahoma's winning, but they're not doing a good job of it. They're not really looking impressive. And win's a win, don't get me wrong. But when you're playing teams that in theory are more inferior to you, inferior opponents, you expect a team like Oklahoma, especially at home, to mop the floor with them. And they were not doing that, not just against West Virginia, but again against a lot of the opponents that they face. So West Virginia, on the road, Morgantown, not going to be easy. And then, of course, Oklahoma State, a team that certainly has the talent to get back to the Big 12 championship game. Again, they narrowly missed out on the college football playoff. They beat Baylor, and they're in. They are going to get to have play Oklahoma again in Bedlam. That will be the second biggest game on the schedule for Brent Venables in his first year. Texas and Oklahoma State being the biggest, obviously, 2 biggest rivals. So that 4-game stretch is going to be the biggest thing for Oklahoma. That will define the season for the Sooners. They close the year out with Texas Tech on the road. They can't afford a Bedlam hangover, whether they're high off a win or low off a loss. They beat the Red Raiders 52-21 last year. Red Raiders have a new head coach in Joey McGuire. We talked about him in our coaching series change. We don't believe that's going to be very successful for McGuire in the long run. Maybe in year 1, maybe in Lubbock, senior night can give Oklahoma a run for their money, but we wouldn't put too much money on that right now. And again, these aren't predictions. Those will come later. But the thing we want to harp on the most is obviously Texas and Oklahoma State, the 2 biggest games on the schedule. But what will define Oklahoma's season, whether they can make the Big 12 championship, whether they are legitimate college football playoff contenders, that will be determined from October 27th to November 19th. And what we believe is the 4 biggest, toughest game stretch for the Sooners going into this season. But I can tell you one thing, guys. A lot of people were upset that Lincoln Riley left. I think Oklahoma fans are over it now. They're excited for the future, and as you should be, because Brent Venables was a fantastic hire. The talent is there. You have a capable quarterback, and yes, they might be ranked kind of low in our rankings, but I can promise you that Oklahoma will be in the hunt for a Big 12 title in 2022. They will be back in that hunt. People are kind of sleeping on Oklahoma in a way. They're turning their attention to Baylor and Oklahoma State and guys like that. The Sooners are not gone. The Sooners are still very, very relevant, and they will make some noise, not just in the conference, but on the national stage in 2022. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe. Again, those things that take you just a few seconds help us out tremendously. So help build our channel. Help us continue to bring you this content 24/7, 365. And join our Gridiron Expert team today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.